Right. Now, the idea of imposing austerity on Greece to get them to fulfill their Maastricht Treaty agreement as it is now, this, of course, is going to reduce taxable revenues because they're reducing the growth potential there, which is actually going to make it more difficult for Greece. And doesn't anyone understand that if they're trying to get the economy to grow their way out of the problem, that by imposing all these austerity measures is actually going to make it harder for the economy to
They,
grow?
they, they don't seem to realise that, man. What you've got really is a situation in which there's been so much private debt issued around the globe that is now that we're being hit with a private credit crunch. And what is now being imposed by things like the Maastricht Treaty is a public money crunch at the same time. So you're suddenly going to reduce the amount of money in circulation. And of course, the economies will go down as a result, thereby causing a feedback that'll make those deficits not become worse again, not necessarily worse than they started out to be, but certainly less successful than the people who are trying to cut the budgets believe they're going to be. So we have a situation where there's a declining financial engine driving the global economy, and conventional economic theory means that people are going to make, as well as watching that fall without understanding why, they're going to make the government side fall at the same time. So it's a double whammy, depressing aggregate demand, and that's the last thing we need right now.
Right. So well, let's just talk about the IMF for a second, because not only do you have the private sector and you have the government, but then you have the ultra government global institutions like the IMF, and the IMF coming parachuting in, and they are coming in with 250 billion in euros. So where does the IMF claim they're getting their euros from?
Well, that's a good question. The IMF certainly has a large fund that it was. That if you subscribe to the IMF, then you have to provide finance to the IMF. I'm not sure of the details there. Let's go back to the time of the Bretton Woods Agreement. The IMF was supposed to issue international trade in currency called special drawing rights (SDRs), and they were supposed to be the avenue of international trade. And the IMF was supposed to act like a global sovereign bank to provide those to countries based on the size of their export industries. That since we haven't done that, we're getting part of this total chaos of the global currency system as well. So in some ways, this whole crisis is forcing the IMF to adopt the role that Keynes tried to make it have in the first place, of being the issuer of international trading currency. But as to where they're getting the euros from, I presume they're going to be borrowing them or using them out of their own reserves, and we're going to get caught up with an IMF credit crunch at some stage. This just gets, I begin to wonder where is Lewis Carroll in all this, and who's got the role of the Mad Hatter?
Right. So in other words, let me throw this out there, and you tell me if my thinking is in the ballpark, correct? In other words, you've got this incredible tendency to just on Wall Street they call securitization. So all of these debts are being repackaged, and they're being extended into longer maturity dates. So here you have a situation where you've got hundreds of billions and now trillions of debt, and it's U.S. dollar denominated debt. So is it therefore a possibility or a through line here, a storyline, where the special drawing rights, or the SDR, is crowned the new global reserve currency, and it's the foundation would be participation by these other various currencies, the U.S. dollar, yen, euro, etc. But it provides the platform upon which that debt stack can be expanded in ways that can't be expanded now. So instead of having a U.S. dollar and a globe with 700 trillion in derivatives, you've got the SDR as the world's primary trading currency, and take that 700 billion and expand it out to some other heretofore new incredible debt burden.
I hadn't thought about this before, Matt. So this is actually live discussion here, but I think it's quite possible this crisis could force the IMF to bring SDRs back with the backing of the global governments and actually get them the status they're supposed to have under the Bretton Woods Agreement in the first place, which is to be the currency for international trade, and break away from some of the financial chaos we've got out of the floating exchange rates and using the American dollar as the international currency, which of course has given them the capacity to exploit seigniorage so badly, which has been a major part of why the financial sector has been able to run riot in the last 20 or 30 years. So perhaps a return to the original envisaged role of SDRs and then the IMF becoming an international conduit that can't be exploited as easily as the American dollar can be, might be one of the few positives come out of this crisis.
All right, so seigniorage, of course, being the commissions that go to the U.S. by virtue of having the world reserve currency. Okay, Steve Keen, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Thanks so much for being on the edge.
It's great to be with you, mate. Lovely to talk once more.
All righty, and that's going to do it for this edition of On the Edge. I want to thank my guest, Steve Keen. If you want to send me an email, please do so at ontheedge@presstv.com. Until next time, this is Max Keiser saying bye, y'all.